familycouncil.org. There we go. Pulling up the website. Some great headlines here. You can see this if you want to be updated about what's going on here in Arkansas, as well as national issues concerning traditional American values and the family. Matter of fact, here to talk more about that, we have Family Council's Luke McCoy is back with us. Luke, how are you, sir, on this Tuesday before Thanksgiving?
Paul, I'm great. Thankful to live in the United States for sure, but challenged by the issues that are presented in this great country and trying to do something about it like you are.
Man, I'm glad you started that way. We were just talking, Joe and I, and some other folks as well yesterday I was talking with. You know, we have a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but we got a lot of stuff to be thankful for here in this great country. And there's just I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm really optimistic, really excited to see the, folks on my side of the family and to just be thankful, be thankful to be alive. Isn't it great to be alive?
There's a lot the scriptures say about that and about all sorts of other blessings and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good to be an American. I saw a post on Facebook the other day where some lady was sharing a tweet from a gentleman who said, basically he was saying, how's that capitalism look when you've got people living in their cars in urban areas and they still can't get access to health care and so on and so forth? And I thought for a few minutes, and I was wanting to respond. I usually don't respond anymore to controversial stuff on Facebook because I don't have time to pull back and forth. But basically, I just responded. I said, capitalism isn't perfect, but you know what? Lots of people are flocking to the United States and to other developed countries that have a capitalistic society and some rights and so on. No one's fleeing to Venezuela. Mm-hmm. No one's fleeing to North Korea. No one's fleeing to a whole bunch of other countries that are broken and typically are socialistic, communistic, and are a threat to the individual and property rights.
No, you're exactly right. And to your point, there has never been somebody who's put their family on a raft down in South Florida to try to make it to Cuba and go through shark-infested waters to do so. That has never.
Well, it would probably be a cheap American trying to get down there. So they're not going down there for a capitalistic society or individual rights.
Exactly. But the reverse happens all the time. Okay, so Luke, you mentioned Facebook, and so this Chick-fil-A happened last week. The Chick-fil-A situation where they quit giving to these Christian charities and making these politically correct moves so that they can move into other markets is what it looks like to me. And so somebody on Facebook wrote, listen, folks, come on. The gospel, thankfully, the gospel does not, live, or die based on what Chick-fil-A does. And you know what? That person is exactly right. Exactly. That person is exactly right. But I did comment. I was like, yeah, that is true, but I'm still disappointed. And that's kind of where I am. I'm just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I just am really disappointed in Chick-fil-A. That's all. What do you think?
I'm still on the fence as far as what I'm going to do with my fast food dollars.
Oh.
But I did get some. I don't have a urge to go out and just, man, I want to go help Chick-fil-A again.
Yeah.
Because beforehand, when I ate Chick-fil-A, it's because it was good, it was somewhat convenient, and I knew I was supporting an organization that shared the same values. But this is what I learned just yesterday. There's a site called lifesitenews.com, and Family Council, we use this occasionally. They're a big pro-life news outlet, but they also cover other issues and stories. And what they reported on was actually on Friday. They issued this article. Chick-fil-A was already moving left, but nobody noticed it until it came to the LGBT lobby. Basically, a few things in this article point to where Chick-fil-A had folks on the inside that weren't your Donald Trump, Rick Santorum, Marco Rubio, social conservative, or fill-in-the-blank conservative. It looks like they had hired a gentleman. Let's see, his name is He was the executive director of the CFA Foundation. Rodney D. Bullard, a former White House fellow and assistant U.S. attorney. Now, some may have mistaken him for a conservative because he was a fellow in the Bush administration, but was an Obama donor and more recently had donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign while at Chick-fil-A, end quote.
Okay.
And so he became the vice president of corporate social responsibility. Why would a family-based, family-led, fill in the blank, whatever good thing you want to say about Chick-fil-A, why would they have a Obama donor and Hillary Clinton donor as their vice president of corporate social responsibility? I don't play high management corporate type positions and so on. I've never been involved. I don't know if this guy was just really good at what he did, but it just seems really odd that higher ups, Dan Caffey himself, maybe and others, wouldn't have vetted someone like a vice president of an area of donating. And what was interesting, the article also pointed out, is they used to be called something else. I forget exactly. It's in the article, but they changed it. The article made note that they changed it to corporate social responsibility. Well, I think you all and your listeners, Paul and I, know that that's sort of like PC talk.
Yeah.
Corporate social responsibility.
Yeah, the title in and of itself, it's like, good grief. I mean, why? Why do you even need that? I think a lot, your morals and ethics determine your social responsibility, from an individual perspective, and, that would also influence what you do in your business. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, well, the article goes on to say that as Chick-fil-A was looking to expand internationally, they hired a firm called, they hired a firm called Navigator. It's an international lobbying firm, and it's basically, if you were to get a description from a gentleman up in Canada who is the president of the Institute for Canadian Values, which is a group like Family Council, sort of kind, not exactly, but a conservative group. They describe this firm, Navigator, as the #1 gay lobbying firm in Canada.
Oh.
So, and then you add to it, the article goes on, the gentleman who wrote it from lifestylenews.com goes on to say that the Chick-fil-A Foundation will be donating to Covenant House as part of this recent switch, which is proudly supports LGBTQ type causes. So here's where I was thinking, Paul, and I think a lot of folks stand. Hindsight's 2020. But if I'm an organization like Chick-fil-A and I stand for family values, traditional marriage, so forth and so on, and then we, the contracts with Salvation Army and Fellowship for Christian Athletes ends, okay. But then all of a sudden we've taken on this other organization in place of Salvation Army, Covenant House, that takes care of like homelessness and things like that, I believe, that is pro-LGBTQ. I'm baffled. I say I'm on the fence, but I'm sort of leaning away from only eating at Chick-fil-A when it's convenient. So I wanted to talk about some of these things. I think a lot of people, maybe your listeners and a lot of folks out there, they're just familiar with what they see on the news media or the headline on Facebook. And so, I'm still going to eat some Chick-fil-A, probably, but I'm not going to go out of my way, definitely, to promote and eat Chick-fil-A.
Man, that is some interesting information, Luke. Like, I had no idea that, you could chart their move left. That this has kind of been a long time coming, so we really shouldn't be surprised here. They've, and I guess what's frustrating to me as a conservative is, you're kind of seeing the Walmartization, if that's a word, of a corporation like Chick-fil-A. And I don't know why all of these corporations, they seem, once they get big enough, they seem to have to be, they turn into a bunch of leftists. And, I just don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's interesting. Jerry met with some folks at Walmart at one point, and I remember they were saying they were trying to recruit good talent to Northwest Arkansas. and from the West Coast and the East Coast. And basically, Jerry said, Sam Walton built Walmart from people from Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. Built it into the largest corporation ever. What's wrong with people here? We have creative people here, but anyway.
Yeah.
There was more about Chick-fil-A's past, too. There was, I think, some comments back when Obergefell ruling came down from the Supreme Court, where Dan Cathy took down his tweet, and just little by little. And, we shouldn't be completely shocked that these sort of things happen. Just take the verse. The love of money is the root of all evil. I mean, that causes so many people to turn. We see it a lot in politics. Money seems to be the downfall and leads back to everything, and a lot of corruption and unethical and immoral dealing. Money.
Yeah.
Money. But, Paul, I don't know how much more time we have left. Do you want me to move on to the other things?
I'd like to talk a little bit about some rights that we as Americans should be uniquely thankful for, because it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. So last week I thought, is there anything that we Americans have that no one else has, or almost no one else has at all in the world, as far as like rights, constitutional rights? And this is what I found out. I found out three things. One is many people who live on the earth who have quote-unquote rights have them statutorily. They don't have it in a constitution or something very similar. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that. So we should be thankful that it'd be really, really difficult, much more difficult for legislators here in the United States to change our laws. But in other countries, they can be changed statutorily. That's a much lower threshold and much easier process and so forth. But here are two specific rights that I found. There may be more. I'm not a lawyer. I depended on other people. I contacted them. But these are two things that we should be especially grateful for. One's going to be no surprise. And I'm not going to talk about stuff like the right not to have soldiers quartered in your house. I don't think that's really entertaining or interesting. And while I'm thankful for that, I guess, but nonetheless, I kind of wouldn't mind some soldiers maybe hanging around my property occasionally.
At this point,
might be helpful. But,
yeah, that's funny.
But here's two rights, Paul, that seriously we as Americans should be very considerate for. And like I said, one is not going to be a shock. It's the First Amendment and how what's the word? I forget the word. The lawyer told me yesterday, but the breadth, the expansiveness of the First Amendment.
5 freedoms.
Over in like Britain. I'm sorry.
There's 5 core freedoms in that First Amendment. I mean, it's a dandy, that one.
Yeah, and so like over in Europe, you have the freedom of speech to a certain extent. And don't get me wrong, we do too over here. But over in like Europe, like Britain, you can be accused of libel much easier. Like the media has to be careful and has to give certain things, from what I was told, approved by the Queen or the government and so on. I don't know the exact details necessarily, but they have to get approved by government officials, or else they could be accused of libel. And just think, here in the United States, and I know this may be something a lot of your listeners and conservatives don't appreciate, since Donald Trump gets attacked day in, day out, but freedom of speech is very nice, and I like it a lot. So, but the breadth, the expanse of our First Amendment is very unique to the world. Mm-hmm. And this is, I'm talking to the lawyers at Americans United for Life, Alliance Defending Freedom, gentlemen here in Little Rock. These are men and women that I hold in very high regard, high respect, and so I trust their judgment. The other one that's kind of unique I didn't think of was the right to a grand jury. Now, I'm not talking about trial by jury, because a lot of other, some other countries have a trial by jury. I'm talking about the right to a grand jury, which is basically this. If you're charged with a capital offense or an infamous crime, you have the right for a grand jury to be convened, gathered, and to gather the facts of the case. And so, this is Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I don't have anything more earth-shattering or
no, I think it's
sexy
awesome
or jazzy, but nonetheless, excuse me, these are things we should be thankful for. I'm sure we're thankful for a lot more.
Yeah,
in our Constitution.
You mentioned
and
the
so
first.
on, but
You mentioned the First Amendment. We're talking with Luke McCoy, FamilyCouncil.org. You mentioned the First Amendment and the religious freedom aspect. That also goes, I think, right in with conscience protection. I know we're trying to get conscience protection legislation passed here in the future in Arkansas, aren't we?
yes, conscience protection, as I mentioned probably in one of my last segments, is going to be one of the, if not the most important item on our legislative agenda, assuming no other odd issues are added to the liberal cause that we have to fight. But conscience protection is the freedom of thought, the freedom of belief, and so forth, and more importantly, not to violate such thoughts, conscience, beliefs, so on and so forth. And as we head into this kind of more weird, things become more subjective, things tossed from the left that become more subjective and weird.
Yeah.
Conservatives' conscience is going to be challenged, and so we're excited about what we can do with conscience as we see the world getting more and more weird.
Can I ask you this? So, coming up, I know this is kind of a ways away, the next legislative session, 2021. Is there anything people can do to help you guys out at Family Council? Like when you guys are going to be pushing conscience protection legislation, the left is going to combat that politically as much as they can. You may even have a little trouble in the Republican Party. Who knows? So is there anything people can do to stay updated and to help you guys do what you do at Family Council?
Yes, I would urge your listeners to contact Family Council. You can get on our website, Family Council, COUNCIL.org. Our phone number's on there. There's info@familycouncil.org. They can email. They can contact one of us on Facebook. My coworker Kent Yang, Jerry Cox, Sharice Dean, Luke McCoy, myself, David Cox, and say, hey, I want to be a part of your rapid response team. It's hard to believe, but if legislators, state reps and state senators, get enough phone calls from their district, they will seriously consider moving off the fence or changing their decision to whatever their constituents say. Now, don't get me wrong, a very liberal senator or representative is probably not going to support conscience rights unless they are bombarded with thousands of phone calls. Yeah. But even at that, I doubt they would do it. They just leave the room, and miss a vote. But you've got some other conservatives, or Republicans maybe I should call them, I don't know, whatever, that are against this conscience because of the governor's stance and attitude on it. But if we can get, let's say, 30 or 40 people in a state rep district, that's not impossible. That's not hard to do. We can probably find the people. We just got to get them to pick up the phone or send an email or a text message to that legislator. And so this is where I'm going with this, Paul. We have a thing called a rapid response team at Family Council. We need people across the state to be rapid response team coordinators, where then they can then recruit people in that state rep district, in that state senate district. And of course, obviously, a lot of the state reps will mirror over to the state senate district. So we're hoping to get this. We really feel like this is going to be our silver bullet to get conscience at least passed legislatively.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I really think, by 2021, I really think there's going to be so much support for this piece of legislation to protect, people in the healthcare industry, from having to do things that they don't want to do that are against their religious beliefs or against their conscience. I think it's such an American concept, and there are people on the left that are about force, and we've got to stop that. I think it's going to be a no-brainer coming up in 2021. Luke, and I would encourage people to be a part of the rapid response team at Family Council as well to make sure that happens. Luke McCoy, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, sir. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
God bless you and your listeners.
All righty.